So I'm Larissa. I was employee number one, and I'm a member of the founding team of Brex. Brex is a corporate credit card company for technology companies. We started 2 years ago, and we were on stealth for a year until our public launch on June of 2019. And it was founded by Enrique and Pedro. They are second-time founders. They had founded the equivalent of Stripe. So it was, back then an online merchant acquirer, also a company in payments in fintech in Brazil. They started when they were on their last year of high school, and we met because I'm also from Brazil. We were applying to schools in the United States at around 2011, 2012. And they were applying to Stanford while they were running the company. I was applying to Harvard. And there was only pretty much one program that helped Brazilian kids prepare for the SAT and the application process. So that's how we met. And we sort of, connected, admired each other, and got into college at about the same time. But I came in 2013, and their company at the time was doing really, really well. So they stayed and deferred Stanford. And until August 2016, when they decided that, they really wanted to move to the US and start a company that could be truly global. And they had all of these learnings, right, that they were so young and that they wish they had known to start a company from scratch if they were to. So they sold the company, fall 2016, and came to Stanford finally. The idea was to spend 1 year looking, what was the new trends and etc. At Stanford while doing their undergrad, and then finally start something new. But they didn't last 4 months. They were already a Y Combinator with an idea that was originally on augmented reality. And when they were there, they noticed that, one, they probably wouldn't be the very best founders to do the next big thing on augmented reality, since they didn't know much, didn't have much background. And the competition there is really tough. It's Google, Apple, Microsoft, etc. And they also noticed that there was a real pain point among startups, which was even well-funded companies. Like, if you think of Y Combinator, these companies have, back at the time, at least $120,000 in the bank. Banks won't give them a credit card, a corporate credit card. And they need one because around 50% of their expenses require one. It's software, subscriptions, servers, Uber, travel, all of that. It's around 50%, right, of their expenses. And they were like, you know what? Banks won't give them a credit card because they don't have financial history. Of course, they don't have financial history. They just incorporated. So then banks go to the next thing, which is asking founders for a personal liability. So it's like you securing your company with your own personal assets, and you get your credit score affected negatively each month because you are providing that extra line of credit, right, to your business or securing that. And they were like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's build something from scratch that will look into the aspects of a startup that are relevant to determine whether they will be able to pay their credit card bill or not. And at the time we thought that was and still is cash balance. So like, okay, let's build something from scratch, onboard these companies if they're venture backed. So at least, have an investor like angel, VC, or accelerator. We will be able to onboard them. We'll give them 10% of whatever they have in the bank as a monthly limit. The reason why banks can't do that today, like sometimes they know that they're underwriting, right, the way that they approve or not a company to their card program, they know that it's not ideal and not evolving fast enough, but banks are trapped into these legacy systems and processors and technologies that were built on the 80s. And there isn't much they can do in terms of having autonomy over their own technology. So the one big first differential about Brex is that instead of using any of these processors, we built our own infrastructure from scratch. And we've always had a very talented team. Enrique and Pedro both have engineering backgrounds. Enrique then went on to a lot more of the business roles. Pedro is an extremely talented engineer. When he was only 12, he was the first jailbreak of the iPhone 4 in the world. Went on to hack Siri to speak Portuguese. That was the first language she spoke outside of English. And a very technical, very driven, attention to detail. And he recruited a team to be that way as well. But basically, that was the idea of Brex. And we were a Y Combinator on winter of 2017. I was at the time finishing college, and they were working on this idea. And that's when they connected with me in Boston and said, hey, remember we sold the company, we now have this new idea and would love to have you come be our first employee. And, somehow you were able to get to Harvard as the first person on your rural state. I'm sure you will figure out the way to get there and do whatever we need. So in June 12th, 2017, I joined Brex officially as the first employee. And this flexibility of being able, and I'll talk more about our team, how we see recruiting, how we were able to recruit some amazing investors from early on and some amazing, very senior hires as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this big difference about Brex, which is the fact that we are built from scratch instead of relying on these third-party processors that all banks are sort of tied up to. This gives us an advantage, a big advantage from a product perspective, because this means that we can roll out really any features we think are great and at the pace that we want. So for example, Brex today has 210 employees, right? That's a big growth. We've been adding around 20 new employees every other week. And all of these need corporate cards for different reasons. Sales and BD travel, marketing has all the ads to put on the card, engineering has also subscriptions. Imagine having to do an additional application for each person, a new person that you are onboarding, or even having to go to the branch, like a lot of banks require. We built our system to, where adding new employees is a matter of a simple email invite. And you get, once you accept the invite via email, the new employee gets a virtual card already ready to use and active, and a physical card arriving 2 days later. So, and these cards have different numbers on purpose so that you can use the virtual on all of your online subscriptions. So Uber, Wall Street Journal, whatever software subscriptions you have. And if you're like me and you lose your physical card every other week, you don't have to go and replace, update all of your payment method once you get the physical one replaced. So, features like this are only possible because we built this infrastructure from scratch. And more than that, this from scratch approach is great from a business perspective, because this means that we can tailor our product and our analysis of risk and our underwriting, which is, how we analyze what companies to onboard. We can tailor all of that to specific verticals. So for example, our biggest competitor today is American Express, and they have one product, which is the small businesses card that is used both for restaurants and startups. In life sciences companies, everyone's under this one card program, and there is no differentiation according to what these companies need on their day-to-day, on the way they run their businesses. So instead of competing with Amex for eyeballs and just throwing tons of money into Super Bowl ads or all of these venues that Amex currently is, we're competing with them on a vertical by vertical basis. So for example, we started the card for startups. No personal guarantee, no security deposit, 10% of what you've raised is your limit. And as you raise more money, that already adjusts automatically. As you spend money, that also decreases automatically. Really good experience and rewards that are tailored for startups. So you get 1% cash back on everything. If it's software, you get 2%. If it's restaurants, 3%. If it's Uber, 7%. So these are categories of spend that are relevant for startups. And then as we were running our businesses, and a lot of e-commerce companies, e-retail companies started trying to find in Brex a solution to help with their cash flow, to help finance their inventory. They have to buy inventory in order to survive. And because this is such a crucial part of an e-commerce business, they are willing sometimes to pay up to 100% in interest for a lot of players that offer this type of financing to them. But at the same time, they don't have a steady cash burn like startups do, because theirs is a lot more volatile. One day they will buy a lot of stock, a lot of inventory. The next they will be selling, and if sales pick, then they have a higher inflow of cash. But if things are slow or not, so the 10% of cash balance thing wouldn't work for them as well. So we built something that would. We're like, okay, instead of based on cash you've raised, we'll base your limit of your average monthly sales. Instead of giving you 30 days to pay, we'll give you 60 days to pay, also no interest. And we built something that e-commerces have been embracing. It's already a product that is growing faster than our initial startup product. And that allowed us to keep the momentum and already launch our third vertical, which is the card for life sciences. So very similar in underwriting to the startup one, but has rewards like 3% cash back on lab supplies, 7% back on conferences, 4% on travel, all of these categories that are relevant for the big, this like biotech, life sciences, from startups to big companies. So this is definitely something the market and investors see a lot of potential in. Unlike banks, we are able to create this differentiation, and this is a big factor when to account for the momentum and the valuation Brex currently is at. For a little bit of context, our latest round has been just 2 weeks ago, announced 2 weeks ago. We raised our Series C2 for an additional 100 million, which we have like now a total of 300 million at a valuation of $2.6 billion, which is, pretty a good growth and recognition, given that 1 year ago we were just launching publicly. I will pause before I talk about people and retaining and culture, see if you guys have any questions, if you want to take the conversation another direction, so it's like as interactive as possible.
There was a question regarding how did you solve the immigration status situation as Brazilian working for a startup?
That's a great question, and it's an important one for us because we don't take a lot of public stance as a company yet, as a young company on many things, but immigration is one that we do very strongly. Enrique and Pedro are both immigrants. I am an immigrant myself. Today we have 19 different nationalities. It's not even like, oh, my mom is from France. It's like actual 19 different nationalities of like these people, which today is 40% immigrants in the company that are born outside of the United States. And it's not easy, especially at this time, to navigate visa and the immigration system. But part of why we've been raising, there's a lot of reasons for why we've continued to raise a lot of money. But one of the reasons why is that we're able to support the very best talent, and we can go beyond any obstacles, and that includes, for example, visa sponsorship. A lot of companies, because they don't have the resources, or maybe because that's not a priority for them, end up not sponsoring to the extent that they could, or to the extent that is necessary. A lot of immigrants or international workforce, and this is something that has been a priority for us. In specific actions we've taken since the beginning, our legal team, we have always built it to have a lot of knowledge around navigating visa. We have always sponsored every kind of visa. We have O1s, we have green cards, we have H1Bs. So we really try everything we can, and we make that a priority. And sort of fundraising has been helpful to make that possible. We equip our legal team and make sure they know that it's also a priority to advise and to have the right resources to educate and make sure everyone's aware of their options. And more recently, we have also, and this is a big step, because in the beginning we were very conscious of keeping everyone at one place. But right now, for example, we launched recently our office in Vancouver. We don't have any operations in terms of customers in Vancouver, given that today we can only serve the United States in terms of companies that we can give a card to. But this office is really one of the reasons why we chose Vancouver, is to be able to accommodate even more of an international workforce that is talented and that's helping us advance the company. So these are the ways that we were able to do that. Supporting visa to the greatest extent that we can, and creating this office in Vancouver and being vocal about it. Enrique has spoken to the press. We've written bylines, and we support the not only an international workforce, but we also try to be supporting founders as well and looking for them and making sure they know about the card. Because to us, before it was, we even had the idea of Brex, it was a challenge to get a business off the ground without having a credit score in the US and even the option to personally guarantee a credit card.
Awesome. Appreciate that. We've got about 8 minutes left with you. And so maybe we should spend the last 8 minutes with you talking through some of the hiring, the additional hiring stuff that you talked about.
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the things that is interesting is we've always had this impression that Silicon Valley was this land of opportunity and anybody could make it here. And we came in and we noticed that it's more closed than more people expect. And it's a region that, really exciting one, but also very addicted to their own brands. So, as a couple Brazilian kids coming in, not knowing anyone, a few things that were really helpful to open doors was trying to bring in some of these known brands. So Enrique and Pedro had Stanford, Y Combinator was something that definitely helped. And this does open a lot of doors. Trying to look for these known brands helps. But even with those, getting investors to pay attention in the beginning was pretty hard. One of the things that we did early on, and we were on stealth, so Brex back then called Beyond wasn't even searchable. And of course we came in and to everyone we knew, we asked, hey, can you please connect us with everybody you know? And then that got into that next person, can you connect us with everybody you know? But it took a lot of hustling outside of the, what you would expect to be a normal way to get investors. And one anecdote to that is, as a financial services company, we thought that getting someone with a lot of credibility in payments would be crucial for our success. And we really wanted to have Max Laftin as one of our early, first investors. He's one of the co-founders of PayPal, co-founder of now a firm, and very well respected in the tech world in general and in payments more specifically. And, Enrique and Pedro tried intros, tried emailing, tried everything really they could without a lot of success getting his attention. And then they found out that his current company was hiring summer interns, and that the last round of interviews would be a interview with him. The last panel, he would be there himself. And they were like, you know what, let's go through the process. And they went through the process. They took it really seriously. They, made it to the last round. And then they turned to Max and said, hey, we have a confession. We're not looking for a job, but we have an idea that I think you would really like. And that definitely caught his attention. And today he's not only an investor, but a crucial advisor for us. So, going beyond what is expected, being creative in that sense has always helped us a lot. A little bit later on, we were still on stealth. We were able to get 2 very senior hires. That's super important. Your founding team is your A team, and that's what's going to set the bar for the rest of the team. So shortly after I joined, and they were already in conversations with 2 very, very senior executives we have today, and brilliant. One is Michael Tannenbaum. He was Chief Revenue Officer at SoFi, another fintech at the time. And Vince Kogan, Mike came to be our CFO, and Vince Kogan was the second lawyer at Stripe and came to be our head of legal and general counsel. And, it takes a lot of resources. Part of why we choose to continue to fundraise beyond our capital needs is so that we can always afford to have the very best people. Today continues to be true, but it made, even more of a difference early on. And the way that we look at these senior hires is not only people who were, at a successful startup at the early stage, or that was at a successful company at a late stage, but someone who specifically had a crucial role in taking a successful company from point A to point B. And that was Michael for SoFi, that was Vince Kogan for Stripe, and that continues to be the case for a lot of our other executives. So we have VP, of engineering did that for Stripe, VP of the chief of sales did that for Zenefits, and etc. And for the younger talent, which we believe in 100%, and we're always bringing in to the team, it's really a matter of being humble enough to understand that at a startup you will need to wear many different hats and just jump in the roles and get things done, and not just want to sit around and do strategy as someone out of college, which we don't even know what strategy means, but I certainly don't. And so a profile we look for more entry level ones is this humility to really hop on anything and get things done, but at the same time being worried about becoming a specialist or becoming really, really good at 1 or 2 things. And these people, the way that they do it, they try to do it, is not by just always be talking to their managers or the execs at a company, but really by trying to go beyond the knowledge that the company already has and trying to get mentors outside of the company and bringing this knowledge inside. So that's, what we look for a lot of the more entry-level jobs, for example. Another little thing I wanted to mention that was interesting, then we started needing to hire in more scale, and we couldn't afford, to take as long as we had in the beginning of handpicking these roles. Just really needed to continue to have the high bar, but recruit at a much faster pace. And I did some recruiting for a while. It was humbling experience to do that in the Bay Area, especially as a company on stealth, so not searchable and etc. And we, I started doing the expected things, right? Sending people messages on LinkedIn, sending several emails. We would get to sometimes 5,000 emails in a month when we were hiring more aggressively, and there wasn't really much responses. And today, looking back, I'm not surprised that they weren't. And then we were able to connect with this guy because we were looking for people who had done recruiting really well at other companies. That has always been a thing for us and for any role other than just recruiting. And this guy from Palantir, he came in to help out. He ended up staying because he loved us, loved the company. But one thing he did that was really cool was he said, okay, instead of sending 5,000 emails, right, that nobody will respond to, and who looks at LinkedIn messages, these engineers, they get bombarded every day. Let's do this. Let's, instead of sending 5,000, select 500 really good profiles, and let's understand them really deeply, and let's write these handwritten letters and send to their office, even addressed to them, telling them about the secret project that the co-founders of PayPal are involved in, and that this really cool secret, make it a little bit mysterious. And we did that, and that increased the amount of responses considerably. And that's what we needed, because once they were talking with the team, once we brought them through the door into our office, most of the cases they were compelled by the idea and by our backgrounds and the dream we're trying to build. But sourcing was an issue. Getting them to come and talk to us was an issue. And these letters, I think, were a very creative way that Peterson at the time, our recruiter, found to change that for us.